Good night to all of you that are watching us. We're going to start the last session of radiotherapy, and it's called Education Session Planning and Plan Evaluation. I would like to thank you, our first speaker, Ahmed Noba. He's the founder of Radiation Knowledge, and he works in the King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center. It's a pleasure to have you with us. He's going to talk about Radiation Knowledge Global Education Platform for Radiation Therapy.
Thank you very much, Angel. And I would like also to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to give some introduction about radiation knowledge as a global educational platform for radiation therapy. So in the beginning, if we looked at the current clinical practice worldwide, we will be having different departments in the world that have different clinical settings, different linear accelerator TPS combination, different physicists, many centers will be having different clinical settings, but all of them actually will be having only one goal, which is to deliver the best possible treatment for cancer patients. Now, in order to deliver best possible treatment for cancer patients, we need to ensure that this best possible treatment is actually delivered through providing professionals with background needed for better clinical performance, and also optimizing the use of clinical resources to the max. So if there is a specific capabilities of certain treatment planning system, the users or the planners or physicists, they should know the exact capabilities of these systems so that it can be utilized to the maximum and they can deliver the optimal outcomes. Now, if this was not the case, then the quality will vary based on personal skills, center to center practice, country to country practice. So in other words, the quality of radiation therapy treatment will be affected, and despite the fact that different many departments, despite having the same resources, they are going to deliver different quality for cancer patients. So this is not a good practice. So here it comes the role that radiation knowledge have started actually since 2016, which is simply can be defined as a cloud-based quality improvement platform in radiation therapy. It aims at sharing the best clinical practice among professionals in the world. And how is that in terms of concept? So how is the global knowledge sharing as a concept? It simply starts with defining a specific task through which it actually unifies the global effort to improve the quality of a certain clinical procedure. For example, if we have an advanced cancer case, if we have a certain a task that we would like to improve the quality, then we unify the whole world to look at this one and only one problem, and then we will see how different professionals will work on it, and then outcomes will be also produced. So in this way, we will have one problem. Different professionals will look at this problem and try to perform, and then these submissions will be then evaluated, and then we will be able to see what will be the optimal outcome or result that can be reached and accomplished for this specific task. So let's start with radiation knowledge in terms of timeline. It was founded in December to the end of 2015. Then we had our first planning competition in 2016, and then in 2017 we have the second planning competition, and I was invited to give a talk in the IEA during the ICARO 2 conference, and also IAEA added radiation knowledge web page on the Human Health Campus. In 2018, actually, we have organized 4 planning competitions. We wanted to include also the centers that do not have actually advanced state-of-the-art technology, so they just have 3D CRT. So we needed to add left chest wall case just for 3D CRT, and also included the centers that have advanced technologies. In 2019, we had another planning competition, and this competition was organized in collaboration with China Society of Medical Physics. And in 2021, we are actually now at the end of the SARC event, which is an event that we have organized in collaboration with South Asian, with Oncology Club of Bangladesh, that can that actually is providing an educational event for the first time in the world, actually, that such an event can be organized to deliver different aspects of radiation therapy for professionals. And after 2 months from now, the same concept of the SARC symposium will be applied actually globally, so that all participants from all around the world, they can participate, and there will have some educational sessions, some planning activities, as well as knowledge sharing sessions. Now, when it comes to radiation knowledge community, in 2016, when we started, we had close to 400 planners. In 2017, the number jumped to 2,000, 2018, 3,000, and 2019, 4,500, which is actually, it's like we don't have enough resources to market or to advertise, but simply what raised the number to this large number was mostly the passion of the participants who looked at it really in a very nice way, and they were looking and competing between each other to prove their skills and have the professional recognition worldwide. Now, different approaches for one goal. Now, how to ensure the best possible resources to excuse me. Yeah. Now, how to ensure the best possible treatments by optimizing the use of clinical resources to the max. For example, treatment planning system, as I mentioned, providing professionals with background for better clinical performance. Sometimes planners may do a plan, but they don't know why they need to do it that way. So this is why it would be better if we can provide them with an educational value, so that they can understand and produce better way. Now, when it comes to planning competitions, the goal is to get the best out of all planners and share their best performance. So it's like any kind of competition, that we would like them to have a specific case, do their best, push their treatment planning system to the maximum, and then after that we will collect all the submissions, and then we can share the best performance, the best practice, so that other planners in the world can learn how this system can be pushed to the maximum, and this will have a direct impact actually on the quality of radiation treatment that the cancer patient will receive, regardless of the location or the country of that cancer patient. Radiation knowledge planning competition, so far we have done 2016, and then 2017 a second one. In 2018 we had 4 of them, and in 2019, so mostly seven of them. And in the SARC event that I will be talking about soon, we also had 2 planning competitions. Now, the concept, the model is very simple. So in the beginning, we will be having a complicated, let's say, head and neck case, or any case that depends on the study that we want to select, and then we will share the package. The package will include the DICOM set, the structure set, and also the dosimetric criteria, along with the planning guideline. And then at specific deadline, the planner will download the case, import it to their treatment planning system. They will do the plan, and then after that, they will keep trying, and then they will submit their plans, and then it will be evaluated. And everything is online now, so the planners can upload their plans to our website. It will be evaluating within a few seconds, and then it will get the results. If they like the result, they can have this submission as a final. If not, they can go and try again until they reach their maximum. And then after that, after we receive all the submissions, we will start looking at the scores, and then we will select the best performers, and then after that we will distribute some prizes, along with we will request from the top planners to share their tips, the planning process that they have gone through, so that other planners in the world can learn how to use the treatment planning system to accomplish high quality plans. Now, the planning competitions, actually, it's like unifying the whole world to look at one case. Different planners are having different treatment planning system. They have different skills. They have different years of experience. They are coming from different countries, so the level of training may differ from country to country. All of them will be competing to provide their best. This will also provide a skillful planner with professional recognition worldwide. Top planners will be participating in these competitions to show the world that I am a good planner worldwide, and this will also be used as promotion, for example, in their hospitals. And it happened a few times that some of the top planners contacted me, and they said, I would like to thank you because I used the achievement that I achieved for promotion. And also it can be considered as a good area of research. Now, if we look at the planning competition as just a competition, it may have some disadvantages, or I would say rooms of improvement. That is the fact that many participants would like to have clinical background in the beginning. So if I'm a fresh graduate, or I'm a junior physicist or a junior planner, I would like to know, why would you like us to have this kind of dose distribution? I need to know the contouring aspect of it. I would like to have more information about it. So this has to be added in order to make an end-to-end educational event. And also for busy physicists or planners, it's really time consuming aside their clinical duties. So these are things that consider to be a burden on the planner side, and actually it's like to them it's time consuming, because most of the time cases are really complicated. But many planners, actually, they take the time. Sometimes they work over at the weekends to make sure that they do their best without compromising the clinical performance. And these are the two publications actually we joined. We had two papers published, one of them with the research group from Duke University. They were trying their auto planning algorithm, and they compared their auto planning algorithm dose distribution with the dose distribution of the dose distribution generated with planners worldwide. And also the China Society of Medical Physics, actually they published the outcomes of the 2019 planning competition in a very good journal. Now, the new educational model that we provided this year actually was simply not only a planning activity. It has three components. The first one is the educational component. The second one is the planning activity or the planning competition, and the third one is the knowledge sharing session. The advantages of the new approach is that it provides participants with the needed clinical and technical background, so that we introduce, in general, radiotherapy. We include radiation therapists, radiation oncologists, medical physicists, whether you are a student or fresh graduate or so. We will start in a very with basics, and then we go gradually. And then it encourages student and fresh graduate to get involved. Participants can be all radiation therapy team and can be applied to improve quality of other processes, not only planning. The concept is almost the same, except that we added the educational event at the beginning. This educational event will include some lectures. There will be some clinical discussions between all the radiation oncology team. And also there will be questions and answers. There will be some quizzes as well as prizes. And then after the educational event is concluded, planning challenge starts. Then we will share the package, and planners will submit, and then after that, the third component will be sharing the best practice among the world. So this is just the example. I will go quickly on this. So this is the SARC event that took place, and actually tomorrow, which is Saturday, will be the last knowledge sharing session actually. So I'm just going. So for this, we had two cases, breast case and cervix case, and we focused only on 3D CRT. This is the international speakers. So the local speakers from Bangladesh and the international speakers from 7 countries, from US, from Saudi Arabia, from Italy, from India, from Bangladesh, and so forth. And this is the SARC program. So it started with 4 educational sessions. Okay, so 4 educational sessions. Then after that, so the first 2 were general, the second 2 were case specific. And then after that, the planning competition starts for about 2 weeks or so. And then after that, the competition result was announced. And then the knowledge sharing session and closing ceremony will be tomorrow. Now, this is the breast case that took place, and these are the clinical details for it. And by the way, when we shared this case with big hospitals, they could accomplish something like the score was 75 or so, and they expected that this was the maximum score that one can achieve. And this case is not breath hold technique; it's just free breathing. Okay, so when we shared this dosimetric criteria, people said, well, it's really complicated. I don't think anyone will be able to achieve something close to 100. But as I said, when we opened this to advanced and skillful planners, we noticed that many of them actually could score above 99. So this shows you that using 3D CRT, using the commercially available or clinically available treatment planning system with the clinically acceptable procedures and processes, this you can really achieve high quality plan. And all what you need to know is just to know how, and this can be shared by the best performance. So I will show you just a quick example. So this plan scored 100 out of 100. But unfortunately, it was disqualified because of the complicated setup that the planner used. As you can see, he divided the PTV into fields, into subfields, small fields. And with this kind of treatment, he could score 100 out of 100. But we evaluate actually the plans not only from the scoring perspective, we also evaluate it from whether it's clinically deliverable or not. So this is another plan that is clinically acceptable. Okay, and this is the planner. Actually, he scored 99.25, and tomorrow he will be sharing the step-by-step process, how he could achieve such high quality plan. How could he spare the heart, for example, to be less than 1.5 gray in step-by-step. And he recorded very nice video step-by-step, so that planners in the world, they know how to follow these steps, and this can be implemented even for their clinical patients. This shows you that not only the score is our criteria, but also the being clinically deliverable plans is also a very important factor that we base on to accept or evaluate a plan. This is the top list, the top 20 list of the planners, and as you can see, we have people from India, from Colombia, some from Brazil as well. Worldwide. So those, as you can see, some of them 99.75, 99.27. So, and the criteria was really tough, but they all use 3D CRT forward planning, but it's all about how to utilize the quality of the treatment planning system. And by this, let me conclude. So utilizing the online activities in educational process became a must, especially after the COVID-19 era. Online events can reach large number of professionals, and also it can add value for them. Radiation Knowledge online platform is a channel of knowledge exchange among radiation therapy professionals. Best planning practice is shared among planners during planning competitions, which will reflect directly on the quality of plan generated to cancer patients. High score plan does not mean it's optimal. Clinical assessment should be included as well. Plan complexity, treatment time, number of eye center, MU per subfield for field and field, and other factors need to be included in plan evaluation and assessment. A planning competition is one example of how clinical knowledge can be shared and improved. This approach can be applied not only for planning, but even for other clinical procedures. Thank you very much, guys.
Now I'm going to introduce the second speaker. If you have any questions, you can use the Q&A feature during the presentations. We'll make, at the end of the session, a panel discussion, okay? Now I would like to introduce Saiful Haq. His PhD is the Director of Medical Physicists at the Department of Radiation Oncology at UPMC Human Cancer Center and Professor of Radiation Oncology at the University of Pittsburgh. His talk is about medical physicists in the era of COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Saiful.
Thanks, Angel. Thanks again for inviting me to speak. This is the last session. I was supposed to go first, but I guess we had a little technological issue, but we have done good QA. It's all taken care of. So I will talk about medical physics in the era of COVID-19 pandemic. My affiliation. So the SARS-CoV-2 virus and the ensuing illness, which we know as COVID-19, changed our lives. Look what we are doing now. We are all attending a virtual meeting of about 800 people and sitting at home. And this is great. This is a great outcome of COVID. But there are many things that how impacted the medical physics. The COVID-19 appeared in the US in January of 2020, and as of today has resulted in over 32.6 million total cases in the US and over 580,000 deaths. Although, the most of the healthcare response has been on, services that are directly related to COVID-19 patients, the impact has been really felt in all areas of medical physics. So I'm going to provide some highlights of the impact of COVID-19 in 4 major areas of medical physics and the North American response, the medical physics response to them. These 4 areas are clinical, regulatory and accreditation, education, and research. So the first bullet point essentially suggests that you work with your team members to prioritize and maintain clinical services. Determine which services must be available and which can be postponed. Identify alternative procedures depending on patient eligibility, staff availability, and their expertise. The second bullet point suggests collaboration with the physician colleagues to determine whether clinical alternatives that minimize the use of clinical equipment and staff effort during clinical hours, whether they're appropriate or not. An example will be the use of hypofractionation. Designate a physicist on a rotating schedule to assist in any activity where patient contact is required. This has the advantage that it will facilitate any contact tracing in case there is any infection. Consider options for backup physics coverage. That should be, should your primary physicist is unavailable. You can use, for example, your local consultants or associates from the nearby institutions. These changes to clinical practices required significant modifications to how we do clinical work every day. So the AAPM, provided some recommendations, and those are listed here. Some of those are listed here. The first one, you determine the minimum staffing model for clinical operations. And as you do this should include, of course, the safe operation, the considerations for safe operation, and how staffing numbers dictate service and quality assurance procedures. Manage your tasks or equipment commissioning by keeping in mind the regulatory or accreditation requirements. Delaying any equipment testing may be necessary, only if they are appropriate and allowed, just so that you can focus on acute support of clinical systems. Prioritize your QA tests by considering the impact on patient care and resource availability. Complete the required machine QA as quickly as possible in case the staff availability is reduced later on. Perform QA outside of clinical hours to minimize the impact on clinical schedules. Identify or create work schedules to consider needs outside of work, the staff needs outside of work. For example, your staff may need childcare, and this could impact the availability of your staff. So you should take that into consideration, and at the same time, identify ways to minimize staff exposure to COVID-19. Delineate tasks for on-site staff versus remote staff to better utilize on-site physics resources. We are routinely doing that. People are working from home. Ensure that all necessary resources for off-site work have been tested and are functional before changing the staffing infrastructure. Examples are, you're doing remote work, so make sure your remote access is working. Use of qualified medical displays and auxiliary hardware software for off-site use. Make sure you have the appropriate IT support in place. The Canadian Organization for Medical Physicists, or COMP, also issued a response to the COVID-19 crisis. And they focused on 5 core messages to its membership. And these are shown on the slide here. First one, prioritizing. This involves identifying and maintaining activities that are essential to providing high quality and safe medical procedures. Collaborating. That involves working with other professionals to maintain critical clinical operations. Protecting includes adhering to health authority guidelines to protecting patients, the public, the co-workers, and yourselves. Innovating means using the unique skill sets that us, the medical physicists, we have to address a variety of new problems falling within their scope or within our scope during the crisis. And sharing means committing to the dissemination of information to medical physicists. The healthcare providers use different methodologies to reduce patient visits and minimize the potential for COVID-19 transmission. For example, the use of hypofractionation was supported by ASTRO. They published a statement, and in that statement, ASTRO said, hypofractionation has been demonstrated to be equally effective as standard conventional courses of radiation therapy in specific clinical situations. ASTRO supports the use of hypofractionated regimens in disease sites where the treating radiation oncologist determines it's a reasonable approach. There were other methods to reduce clinic visits that included scheduling multiple patient procedures on the same day and utilizing telemedicine for non-procedure appointments. And we routinely do that these days. Again, because of this COVID-19, many institutions allowed only limited access to essential employees. These are, for example, personnel who are involved in the patient care, but they are not directly employed by the institutions. They are your contract medical physicists, your service engineers who service, for example, our linear accelerators. So they were denied access, right? So in last March, the US Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency issued its guidance on the essential critical infrastructure workforce. In that, one of the things they stated that if you work in a critical structure industry, as defined by the Department of Homeland Security, such as healthcare services and pharmaceutical and food supply, you have a special responsibility to maintain your normal work schedule. It is also recommended that for events where facility access is limited, facility administrators or the administration must understand the roles that the various personnel play in patient care and are deemed essential at the onset of the event. Next one is regulatory and accreditation. AAPM proactively reached out to various regulatory and accrediting bodies and requested them to relax testing frequency criteria. Several organizations granted extensions for the requirements or suspended operations altogether. For example, the American College of Radiology, or ACR, extended its accreditation requirements of annual medical physicist diagnostic equipment service to 16 months and suspended all in-person site visits for its radiation oncology and diagnostic imaging accreditation programs. The Joint Commission allowed organizations to defer completing the performance evaluations for diagnostic imaging equipment, excluding, of course, the mammography equipment, until 60 days after the end of the state of emergency. They also suspended all regular on-site surveys and other healthcare organizations in hospitals and other healthcare organizations. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or the NRC, created criteria for granting of enforcement discretion for non-compliance for licensing, suspending the use of radioactive materials. The length of time for various categories of discretions depending on multiple factors, including security of materials and frequency of use. And the accredited dosimetry calibration laboratories, or the ADCLs, where, for example, we get calibration of our ionization chambers. They also limited some equipment calibration services in response time and available services. The US Food and Drug Administration created guidance to increase availability and capability of imaging products that are needed for diagnosis and treatment monitoring of lung disease in patients with COVID-19. This frequently involved diagnostic medical physicists to ensure patient and personnel safety, as well as diagnostic effectiveness. They also suspended Mammography Quality Standards Act inspections. The Conference of Radiation Control Program Directors, or CRCPD, they provided guidance to various US state regulatory bodies on various topics, including registration and use of X-ray machine at temporary facilities, X-ray equipment survey compliance, and possible extension requests, and medical radioactive material license compliance. Although all these measures were necessary to address the initial impact of COVID-19, they also created a backlog of work of clinical medical physicists, and it will be important for facilities to recognize this issue and allocate adequate resources to address this backlog at the end of this state of emergency, if you will. The third item area is the area of education. As I mentioned in my previous session, many US and Canadian colleges and universities closed their campuses to minimize COVID-19 transmission and developed virtual courses to replace their traditional in-person courses. Many students could not comply or complete their required coursework promptly, and some students had difficulty in scheduling their MS thesis and PhD dissertation defenses. These and many similar circumstances delayed the trainees to complete their MS, PhD, postdoctoral certificate, or DNP programs. The education and training of individuals who enrolled in this medical physics graduate and other programs to meet these requirements were adversely impacted. And this, in turn, adversely complicated situations because many students who result for the residency programs or residency match program, they're unable to do that because they could not get their PhD or the master's degrees. So the Society of Directors of Academic Medical Physics Program, or SDAP, here in the US, the Commission on Accreditation of Medical Physics Education Programs, or CAMPEF, and the AAPM Education Council jointly sent letters to the directors of the medical physics residency program, making them aware of the situations. They referred these directors to CAMPEF's residency standard, which allowed some flexibility regarding the compliance with certain standards. The guidance was also given to the residency candidates, advising them that some residencies could delay their start because of this COVID situation. And for those residents who are currently already enrolled in the program, it may be difficult sometimes for them to complete their assignments or upcoming clinical rotations. So guidance was given to the residency program directors to address this. STAM, CAMPEF, AAPM Education Council also sent similar joint letter to medical physics graduate program directors and gave them many guidance on how to deal with situations with students not being able to complete their degree requirements or accreditation requirements. Research. COVID-19 had a profound impact on medical physics research. There are disruptions in many ongoing research projects and laboratory activities. Universities and academic medical centers implemented plans to allow research labs to conduct essential activities to sustain capacity, such as caring for laboratory animals, cell lines, tissue cultures, and maintenance of vital equipment for research. Again, because of these disruptions, there were flexibility in timelines and deadlines associated with most projects grants and programs. The AAPM Science Council moved quickly to issue guidance letter to medical physicists focusing on 5 areas. These are clinical trials and clinical research, maintenance of research capacity while transitioning to remote work, operational access to equipment, coordination with research sponsors, new opportunities for medical research. So this information was actually published in the AAPM newsletter. The US National Institute of Health, or NIH, announced allowances and extensions for researchers unable to meet reporting and submission deadlines due to this effect of pandemic. NIH agencies also posted updates on their website detailing procedures for investigators to report unbudgeted research expenses caused by this pandemic on their projects. New opportunities. This is due to the novelties of this SARS-CoV-2 virus that itself presented in the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been many new research initiatives to address these challenges. There has been particularly strong interest in contributions from medical imaging and radiotherapy. Many clinical trials attempted to investigate the utility of chest radiography and CT to diagnose COVID-19. There were mixed results. Early trials were small, they're local, they're conducted relatively quickly. Then last year, a major initiative from the US National Institute of Biomedical Engineering and Bioengineering, also known as NIBID, was announced to create the Medical Imaging and Data Resource Center, or MIDRIC. This center is now operational, and it will use open source database of medical images of COVID-19 patients. This is through a joint effort of AAPM, SCR, and RSNA to facilitate further research on COVID-19 imaging, including the application of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this program was funded through a special emergency opportunity created by the NIH to address this COVID-19. It is a broad collaborative effort which at the time of its announcement already included 5 infrastructure development projects, 12 individual research projects, and collaborations from 20 individual institutions. This program will gather a large database of COVID-19 patient images to be used for development and validation of artificial intelligence tools that will enable early detection based on COVID-19 imaging biomarkers in the lungs and heart. Then there was some historical evidence that suggested that there are low doses of radiation from 0.3 to 1.5 gray of ionizing radiation may be effective in treating pneumonia. So it has been proposed that such a therapy could be used to induce anti-inflammatory response and relieve the acute respiratory distress associated with the manifestations of COVID-19. So there were at least a dozen clinical trials that were registered to investigate this therapy, and early results are promising. To summarize, then, although COVID-19 adversely impacted our profession, it has provided opportunities to evaluate and modify many aspects of clinical, educational, and research activities and processes in medical physics. Clinical operations have become more efficient while still providing high-quality patient care. The role of imaging in the diagnosis of COVID-19 has highlighted the value of medical physicists in emergency response situations. Education programs and certifying boards have modified operations to allow more flexibility in education, training, and examination opportunities. Research efforts have identified non-traditional medical physics opportunities in the diagnosis and treatment of COVID-19, which could expand to other future opportunities. These changes will help identify future opportunities for medical physicists and allow us to respond more effectively to similar future events. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Saiful. Very interesting approach of this so important plan. COVID changed and still changing our life and our professional life too. And I think the main key is which and how resources we should prioritize. Thank you very much. We'll be back in 1 minute. I would like to introduce our third speaker, Rodrigo Anhio. He's radiation oncologist at Osvaldo Cruz Hospital, and he made an observership McGill University, and he's formed in the AC Camargo Hospital.
No, I cannot hear him.
Me too.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, okay. Okay, and now? Do you hear me? Okay.
We'll back in 1 minute. In 1 minute. Sorry
Okay.
for this technical issue. Our third speaker is Rodrigo Angel. He is Radiation College at Osvaldo Cruz Radiotherapy Hospital. His talk is about plant quality radiation oncology perspective. Thank you, Rodrigo. You can start.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My congrats for the organizing committee. And at this point, I will present in Portuguese, ok? A avaliação médica da qualidade de um plano de radioterapia envolve diversos critérios. Um artigo antigo, publicado na Seminars in Radiation Oncology, coloca bem essa questão. Enquanto a métrica para o departamento de física é muito pragmática, para o médico não é bem assim. Então, o julgamento de um plano individual depende da qualidade e de uma subjetividade que varia, inclusive, entre profissionais, entre radioterapeutas. E é difícil da gente estabelecer um plano quando entra uma questão subjetiva de qualidade. Isso vem mudando nesses quase 10 anos para outros critérios, para uma métrica de qualidade, a complexidade do plano e a robustez desse planejamento. De novo, jogando na responsabilidade do departamento de física que todas as métricas sejam adquiridas. Mas quando a gente parte para a parte médica de avaliação de um plano, por que um médico vai aprovar ou reprovar um plano? Existem padrões mínimos. O primeiro é que o departamento precisa seguir todos os guidelines de qualidade da APM, enfim, os test groups, enfim, com relação à homogeneidade, reprodutibilidade, margens, incertezas, controle de qualidade e a garantia de que toda a equipe, todo o time está treinado naquela técnica. Estabelecer os padrões que são reprodutíveis de constraints, isto é, entre médicos e físicos, ou seja, não adianta o médico importar um constraint de uma determinada instituição e querer aplicar ao seu departamento. Ele tem que ser reprodutível dentro das características do departamento, e isso tem que ser construído a várias mãos. Cientificar a equipe médica toda e qualquer modificação do software de cálculo. Por exemplo, se há uma migração de Pencil Beam Convolution para AAA, para Monte Carlo, enfim, existem diferenças no plano final apresentado ao médico e os médicos precisam ser cientificados qual é o impacto dessa modificação de cálculo na sua avaliação do plano. Este refinamento que acontece é uma expertise da equipe. Vem com os cabelos brancos que eu já não tenho mais, né? Em prever e minimizar riscos que não estão previstos em guidelines. Quando a gente tem constraints e guidelines, nem tudo que a gente enfrenta no dia a dia está planificado. Eventualmente, nós precisamos do juízo clínico para definir se um determinado plano pode ou não ser aprovado. O Quantec, que é o básico para qualquer constraint montado em um sistema de planejamento, ele é muito estanque, ele já tem praticamente 10 anos, mais de 10 anos até, e ele serve para o fracionamento convencional. Para o hipofracionamento mais extremo, a gente acaba usando guidelines diferentes, constraints diferentes, basicamente do Timmerman, enfim. E esse artigo que a gente publicou foi bem interessante. Ele é antigo, ele é de 2007, pouco tempo, tinha 5 ou 6 anos de implementação do IMRT, e a pergunta foi o seguinte: para radioterapia com intensidade modulada de próstata, por exemplo, será que se nós tivermos uma adesão rígida aos constraints, isso seria uma garantia de qualidade do plano? Basicamente, seguindo os constraints e ignorando um pouco essas nuances, essas variáveis que existem de médico para médico? No final das contas, a resposta foi sim. Constraints rigorosos e rigorosamente seguidos pela física fez com que não tivéssemos nenhuma toxicidade gastrointestinal geniturinária, graus 3 e 4 tardias, e nenhuma toxicidade aguda, grau 4 ou mesmo grau 5. Ou seja, seguir rigorosamente os constraints que foram, os guidelines de planejamento que foram estabelecidos dentro do departamento, era uma garantia de qualidade. Mas existem situações, especialmente com o SBRT, que isso é uma nuance. Por exemplo, nesse caso, com o Alcyon, era um tumor de próstata operado com uma recidiva bioquímica, e essa era a primeira versão do Alcyon, ainda com os JAWS andando em paralelo, né? Ainda com o Conibin CT em MV. Então, esse foi o plano em VMAT. O histograma de dose e volume foi aprovado, passou nos nossos constraints. Aqui a gente estava com 20% recebendo reto 6.000 centigrays e em torno de 10% somente recebendo 7.000, passando com folga. Os hotspots estavam todos dentro do CTV, os constraints estavam ok, tudo perfeito. Foi liberado para o médico aprovar. Só que na hora da aprovação, o médico gosta de olhar a distribuição de dose em color wash e não em isodoses. E o que a gente viu foi que havia algo estranho na reconstrução sagital, que eram esses strips, né, com pontos até de subdosagem, tanto no apical quanto mesmo dentro do CTV. E o que nós identificamos, de novo, isso era muito no início do Alcyon, ainda em 2018, é que havia necessidade de angulação do colimador para compensar esses jaws que não andavam, essas lâminas que não andavam isoladamente. Então, basicamente, o ajuste que foi feito foi girar o colimador, fizemos um ângulo de colimação, os constraints continuaram exatamente iguais, e essa diferença, esses strips, foram eliminados, tornando o planejamento mais homogêneo. Então, se a gente for comparar os constraints, os histogramas de dose e volume, eles são muito intercambiáveis entre si. Ou seja, se eu fosse analisar simplesmente o histograma de dose e volume, ele poderia ser aprovado facilmente. Um outro cenário é numa reirradiação de loja prostática com SBRT. Era um paciente com câncer de próstata operado, recidivado, irradiado como resgate com fracionamento convencional, uma nova recidiva, identificada pelo PET, PSMA e ressonância, depois de 10 anos de evolução. Ou seja, era uma situação em que, pela longa evolução da doença, valia a pena investir. Então, o que nós fizemos foi um resgate com SBRT em 5 de 600, e essa é a isodose de 30 Gray. Perfeito, os histogramas, apesar de nós não termos muita informação na literatura sobre quais constraints nós deveremos usar numa situação como essa, isto estava altamente conformada a esta área. Entretanto, quando a gente ia abrindo a isodose de 3.000 para 2.000 e para 1.000 centigrays, o que nós víamos é que havia uma extensão para as áreas previamente tratadas de bexiga e reto. Então, nós refizemos, junto com a física, esse planejamento, colocando restrições para esses dois órgãos que já haviam sido irradiados, e o que a gente vê aqui, numa comparação entre os dois, o plano recalculado com uma borda do PTV um pouquinho subdosado, e o plano original, o que a gente vê foi que, com isodose de 20 Gray, nós já identificamos para onde haveria a migração da isodose, e com 10 Gray, com uma proteção maior do reto do que teríamos aqui, e um pouco mais na bexiga do que teríamos aqui. Esse foi o plano aprovado, o paciente foi tratado sem para-efeitos importantes. Os histogramas de dose e volume com um pequeno prejuízo ao PTV, mas com cobertura integral do CTV, e o que nós garantimos foi rigor no IGRT diário para localização, uma dose menor, bem menor no reto, ou seja, dentro do que seriam os constraints básicos para esse tratamento. Uma irradiação, de pâncreas com SBRT, essa senhora não teve resposta à quimioterapia, era irressecável, já estava com sintomas, com dor irradiada, e tentou fazer em outro serviço radio e quimioterapia com 3 frações, ela já precisou ser internada por complicação. Então, esses foram os 2 planos de tratamento que foram oferecidos. Né? Este foi o primeiro, e o que nós pedimos para converter foi para isto. O que a gente vê que os histogramas estão muito parecidos. Então, qual que é a diferença entre eles? Basicamente, os hotspots. Neste plano, os hotspots estavam localizados mais na periferia do órgão, apesar de todos estarem dentro do PTV, e próximos às áreas de risco do adenal. Especialmente neste daqui, a gente pode ver, está muito próximo de área do adenal, enquanto nesses, praticamente não temos hotspots na sua periferia. Então, este foi um fator, apesar do histograma estar idêntico, praticamente idêntico, esse foi um fator de seleção deste plano, evitando os hotspots na periferia do PTV. Novamente. Um outro caso de radiação de cabeça e pescoço, um linfoma com muito baixa dose, 22 grays somente. De novo, a gente vê que são planejamentos semelhantes. De cara, a gente já olha que aqui é um campo mais, é um volume mais homogêneo de tratamento. Aqui nós temos alguns hotspots, né, que não existem aqui. Mas, curiosamente, o plano aceito foi esse. Basicamente, porque quando a gente abria a isodose, aqui com uma isodose de 800 centigraus, já havia uma projeção maior para a parótida e para a cavidade oral, o que seria danoso quando a gente irradia a cavidade oral com relação à toxicidade e contaminação. E o esôfago, ele era atingido aqui em sua parede posterior, coisa que não acontecia aqui. E quando a gente delineia órgão oco, reto, esôfago, traqueia, enfim, nós desenhamos como se fosse um volume sólido, e não é só a parede. É dificilmente, exceto o Memorial, por exemplo, que delineia somente a parede do reto. Então aqui nós delineamos como órgão volumétrico, e eventualmente precisa se colocar volumes acessórios para proteção dessas paredes posteriores, ou seja, acaba complicando um pouco mais o trabalho do físico. Esse outro planejamento, por exemplo, uma paciente de 48 anos com um câncer de mama à esquerda, fez uma quimio com doxorubicina, que é cardiotóxica. Ela é jovem, fez uma quimioterapia que é tóxica para o coração, era uma ex-tabagista recente, em sobrepeso e sedentária, quer dizer, todos os fatores de risco para coração. Fizemos um campo tangente de mama esquerda que passou em todos os constraints. Então, pulmão, 2.000 centigraus, olha, tá bem baixinho aqui. Coração, a gente segue os constraints nórdicos, né, de não mais do que 300 centigraus de dose média máxima. Esse caso estava em 182, com uma excelente cobertura do PTV. Só que isso era em 2014 ainda. Nós optamos por desenhar a coronária. E este era o histograma da coronária, recebendo uma dose média de 2.100. Não havia constraint coronária em 2014. Esses constraints começaram a surgir em 2017 no San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, com a equipe do Mass General, com somente 36 mulheres estudadas. Isso era um pôster, colocando uma sugestão de dose máxima limítrofe de 10 gray. E no caso, nós estávamos com 21,6 gray. Isso não era uma informação que nós sabíamos à época. Então, o que nós fizemos intuitivamente? Pedimos para a física para inserir uma proteção ativa na coronária com colimação, e o que aconteceu foi isto. Nenhum impacto no PTV, um pouquinho mais de redução no pulmão, um pouquinho mais de redução na dose média cardíaca, mas uma enorme redução na coronária, de uma dose média de 2.100 para 596. E nós usamos, na época, por similaridade com o coração, e quisemos baixar mais ainda a dose. Aí sim, nós entramos com um gating respiratório, e essa dose baixou para 239. Se nós usássemos os constraints na época vigentes, estaria tudo bem. E esta foi a proteção de coronária que nós conseguimos ter simplesmente com esta preocupação. Nenhum impacto no PTV. Então, foi uma preocupação intuitiva e que vem surgindo, né, as preocupações com proteção também de coronária, mas até hoje sem um constraint determinado. Foi muito fácil, relativamente, fazer o plano, não trouxe dificuldade adicional. E esse é um artigo que está terminando de corrigir para ser enviado para publicação, que a nossa enfermagem fez, que é qual o padrão de radiodermite nas pacientes submetidas à radioterapia de mama. O primeiro índice que a gente vê na literatura é volume mamário. Então, todos esses aspectos foram avaliados nessa análise. E na análise multivariada, os únicos fatores para radiodermite foram o uso de hipofracionamento, reduziu a radiodermite, e é o que a gente vê na prática, o hipofracionamento é menos tóxico, e a utilização de boost sequencial foi pior para a radiodermite. Isso na análise multivariada. Numa análise bivariada, o hipofracionamento, e aqui é a dose que foi escolhida, claro, também relacionada ao hipofracionamento, mas olhem só, a curva de isodose foi estatisticamente significativa para a radiodermite, e não o volume mamário. O volume mamário não teve um P significativo, mesmo com mamas acima de 800 ml. O que teve foi quando este volume não é uniformizado. E às vezes a gente se convence de que uma mama muito volumosa não vai ser possível conseguir homogeneidade, nós aceitamos uma isodose de prescrição mais baixa, e aí a complicação está armada. E em mamas menores, com menor volume, nós achamos que podemos prescrever, quando necessário, numa isodose mais baixa para ter uma plena cobertura, e isto também é um fator de risco. Não o volume de mama, mas sim a homogeneidade em que a escolha do plano é feita pelo médico. Existem ferramentas para correção médica sem a necessidade de recálculo. Toda vez que a gente rejeita um plano, volta para cálculo, toma mais tempo da equipe da física, nós precisamos tentar identificar qual foi o mecanismo de rejeição do plano e fica nesse, vai para o médico, volta para a física, vai para o médico. Bom, a Varian, por exemplo, tem um recurso que é o MCO, que é o Multi-Criteria Optimization, em que o próprio médico pode fazer pequenos ajustes dentro da curva, dentro do histograma, dentro de pontos quentes, como um dose sculpting, sem que haja necessidade para voltar para recálculo da física. Entretanto, dentro do nosso departamento, a integração que é obrigatória entre médicos, físicos, técnicos e enfermagem faz com que o nosso índice de replanejamento seja somente 5% do total de planos, ou seja, não há necessidade de se investir alguns milhares de dólares num sistema em que o simples alinhamento de condutas entre médico e físico já suprime essa necessidade em grande parte. Então, em resumo, a qualidade de um plano de tratamento de radioterapia é intrinsecamente dependente da adoção rígida de constraints médicos e protocolos físicos internacionais de qualidade. Esse binômio é indistinto e vai garantir a vasta maioria da qualidade de um plano de tratamento. O refinamento do plano, que é dependente desse expertise da equipe, envolve essa experiência, precisa do feedback dos resultados que não foram bem, que foram insatisfatórios, que tiveram um desfecho não esperado ou não desejado, intercâmbio de rotinas entre departamentos. Agora, não sabemos se essa filigrana é realmente impactante para o paciente ou se é só filigrana de cada departamento realmente. E esse risco, que é progressivamente maior quando se vai para um SPRT ou técnicas de hipofracionamento extremo. Quanto mais hipofracionado, quanto mais extremo, mais exigente é a interseção entre médico, físico e guidelines de tratamento. É isso que eu tinha para dizer. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado, Rodrigo. Realmente sempre um prazer aí escutar suas aulas sensacionais. E lembrando a todos aí que o perguntas e respostas será feita ao final da sessão, tá? Podem ir enviando que a gente vai compilar e voltaremos em 1 minuto.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Angel, for inviting me to participate in this section. From now on, we will have 3 more classes, and after this, 15 minutes for questions and discussions. So, continuing the program, I would like to invite now the physician Nicolas Larragueta, who will talk about plant quality and plant complexity indices. Overview about how these metrics can be used for decision making. Nicolas is a medical physicist and Seminars, Centro de Medicina Nuclear y Molecular Entre Rios, in Argentina. Thank you, Nicolas, for accepting our invitation.
Hello everyone, I'm glad to participate in this Congress and I'm very grateful for the invitation, especially to Cristian Saraiva. And we are in Argentina, 500 kilometers from Buenos Aires. And in our radiation therapy department, we have 2 turbines, one normal and one STX, and a barium brachytherapy machine. And we used Eclipse TPS and have some nuclear products for machine and patient-specific QA. Okay, I was invited to talk about plant quality and plant complexity indexes and how these metrics can be used for decision making. First of all, we have to talk about why we need some indices to evaluate the quality of plants. In the past, the planning was evaluated by viewing a 2D image and inspecting hot and cold spots only in this slice. With the advance in computing hardware and then software that can manage 3D information, it was possible to evaluate hot and cold spots in 3D and work with the dose volume histograms and even compare between plants and visually decide which is better. Then what happens when you have 4 plants that meet the objectives recommended by ICRU? Which plan is better? And the DBH have an additional limitation that the structures not drawn are structures not taken into account. Then some indices were proposed to evaluate the quality of plants. In 1993, RTOG proposed the conformity index in the Radiation Quality Assurance Guidelines, and the ICRU in Report 62 in 1999 described the conformity index as the quotient between treated volume and PTV, but with a warning regarding that PTV has to be fully enclosed by treated volume. We all know that this is not always possible. Another index was proposed by NOS with similitude to the conformity index that was called Radiation Conformity Index, which is nothing other than the inverse of RTOG conformity index. Okay, let's see a practical example that we use over all presentation. It's an fractionated 5 fraction of 5 gray BMAT SRS of right jugular glomus. We can calculate the conformity index. We have a dose histogram volume in the absolute volume and both related and absolute dose. We can obtain the volume of reference isodose, in this case 100% over the whole body, and then looking for the PTV volume. Then we can obtain the conformity index. In case that conformity index be below 2, it's an ideal situation. If it is above 2.5 or below 0.9, it's considered a minor protocol violation. And if it's above 2.5 or below 0.8, it's a major protocol violation. The RTOG 9005 proposed 2 more indices. The quality of coverage, that is the quotient between minimal isodose surrounding the target and the reference isodose, and the homogeneity index is defined as maximum isodose in the target and the reference isodose. In this case, we have almost 0.9 for the quality of coverage and 1.16 for the homogeneity index. In this case, if the index is above 0.9, it's an ideal situation, and if it is above 0.8, it's a minor failure in the protocol, and if it is below 0.8, it's a major. And for the homogeneity index, below 2 is ideal, below 2.5 is minor, and above 2.5 is major. There are some trouble with the conformity index calculation when the warning of RTOG is avoided. If you look these 4 images with prescribed isodose in dashed lines and the solid gray volume as PTV volume, we can see that all of them have a conformity index of 1, but only if the first image is a perfect match. We see a shift in the second image, a rotation in the third image, and the equivalent volume in a circular way in the fourth image. Because of the previous slide, Van Riet in 1997 proposed the conformation number. It takes into account the target coverage and the healthy tissues. The BT-ref is the volume of the target receiving a dose equal or greater than the reference dose. BT is the volume of target, and BREF is the reference isodose volume. Van Riet evaluated this on external beam and in brachytherapy patients. Then, in 2000, Paddick proposed the same index for SRS, and we can see the advantage of using it, because only when we can obtain the perfect value when the isodose adapts perfectly to the target. It says in the fourth column, we can see the value of 1, and when we shift an isodose, we have a low index, and the other examples as well. Same year, the SALT group, composed by 3 hospitals in France, proposed a few indices to evaluate the quality of plants different from RTOG. One of them is the standard deviation of lesion. For doing that, we have to set the DVH to differential mode and then evaluate the differences of relative dose in voxels of the lesion and the mean dose. The treatment planning system, like Eclipse, gives you the information of standard deviation, conformity index, and others. Another index proposed is the underdose lesion factor, that is the quotient between the volume of lesion receiving doses below of the prescribed isodose and the volume of PTV. For doing that, we have to see the PTV volume and then subtract the volume of the PTV receiving the prescription isodose. This index is better the closer it is to 0. In counterpart, the other healthy tissue factor is the quotient between the volume of healthy tissue receiving doses above the prescription isodose and the PTV. Again, this index is better the closer it is to 0. Then is defined the geometric conformity factor by the sum of the previous ULF and OHTF. This factor is quite independent of the standard deviation, while the RTOG conformity index is not. Okay, it's time to talk about the second part of the presentation regarding complexity indexes. The intensity modulated treatment plans have the advantage to reduce the doses to the OARs, in this case the maximum dose of the spinal cord, by changing the fluence in the field. This led to increased monitor units per beam that can be really high, as 5 times higher. There are several ways to approach this problem. Webb in 2003 only based this analysis in fluence variation between beamlets. Other works treat the problem with rise of monitor units, and some others based on the frequency and amplitude of fluctuation in the intensity distribution of a beam. The modulation per se is not a bad thing, but we have to take into account that the increase of modulation leads to a better plan quality indices but reduce a dosimetric accuracy. On the other hand, we have that less modulated plans have lower plan quality. Then the question is, why the increase of modulation impacts over dosimetric accuracy? First of all, the MLC have positioning inaccuracies that become more relevant in small fields. The linear performance at small monitor units as flatness, symmetry, the overshot phenomenon regarding the time used by the control logic of the control points, about 50 milliseconds for variancy series, impacts in first shot and the last one. The first segment receives more and the last receives less. This effect is not seen in true beam machine because of the time for the control logic is 5 times faster. The dose calculation algorithm performance and small field dosimetry measurements to commissioning that algorithms have great impacts because of the modulation. The characteristic of MLC as tongue and groove and leaf and interleaf transmission modeling have an effect as well. And the increase of treatment times because of multiple segments with higher MUs generate an interplay effect between interfraction motion and leaf movements. Aim to do an approach of the previous items, McNiven proposed the modulation complexity score in order to evaluate the variability of leaf position, the degree of irregularity in field shape, the segment's weight, and the area into a single score. To doing that, he proposed 2 parts of the index to be evaluated, the leaf sequence variability and the aperture area variability. The leaf sequence variability is the evaluation per segment of the phased leaf sizes. The aperture variability is the open area of the segment over the completed irradiated area outline. Then, to obtain the beam modulation complexity score, we have to do the sum of each segment weighted by the quotient between the segment monitor units and total monitor units in the beam. In the right part of the screen, we can see the 4 segments of the 2 different beams. In this case, the left one has a score of 0.8 and the right one has a score of almost 0.2. This is because all segment parts of the left side beam are in different parts of the beam, and the AAB have a large impact. Finally, we can calculate the modulation complexity score of the plan as weighted sum of the beams. And the last index in this presentation will be the simplified modulation complexity score developed in Semener. This tool aims to be a simple and automated software to evaluate the complexity and the possibility of failure in patient-specific QA. We evaluate the distance between an individual pair of leaves, the green arrow in the picture, and does not take into account the difference between neighbor leaves, the red arrow in the picture. This was used for a magister thesis in patient-specific QA in SRS in 2018. This tool evaluates the distribution of distances between pair of leaves, phased leaves, and the score is defined as the percentage of leaves greater than a specified field size, usually 0.5 centimeters. In this graph, we can see the distribution for 4 different techniques and how BMAT is the highest modulated treatment in this study. We can see in DynArc treatment that we have 2 lesions of 2 different volumes in this case. Then we compare the percentage of gamma passing with our score, and we see the correlation between the modulation and the passing rate. Higher the modulation, lower the passing rate in patient-specific QA. In later studies, we note that in this thesis, we overuse the normal tissue objective tool that Eclipse have in the optimizing process of obtaining highly modulated treatments. In order to obtain deliverable treatments, we have to relax these NTO parameters, and the patient we see as the examples was a proof of that. We can obtain a very good quality indices with deliverable treatments. In conclusion, the necessity of evaluate different indices was aborted, and there is no unique index to evaluate the quality of plans yet. And regarding to the complexity of plans, I think we need more embedded tools in our treatment planning system to abord this topic. But in meantime, we need to develop our tools to evaluate and decide if the plan is deliverable or not prior to do a patient-specific QA. Thank you for your time, and this is my email. If you want to contact me, I'm glad to respond that mails. Thank you very much again for the invitation, and we can continue with the schedule.
Thank you for the great presentation, Nicholas. To continue this section, now we'll have two classes from our sponsors, Electa and Varia. And this moment, I will invite PhD Abhi Chakrabarti, who since 2016 has been the head of product management for treatment management applications within Electa.
Great. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Abhi Chakrabarti, and I'm responsible for the treatment management applications business at Electa. And today I will talk to you about the power of big data in the planning process. And let me just start with the challenges that we are seeing. What is big data, or what is going on with it? So at present, there is an explosion of data, and I'm sure you're seeing this every day in your clinics, right? The demand to manage data has been growing exponentially. Just think of the images that you're getting now ever since IGRT came into being. So with adaptive and so on, this is just growing every day. Now, of course, it contains a wealth of clinical insight. There's a lot of information you could use. However, vast quantities remain unused due to the challenges faced. Right? They're all in different systems. It takes time to gather it together. That's one of the reasons that it's stopping its use sort of meaningfully. And what are the challenges really? They are spread across multiple systems or archives. Think of what it takes for them to be aggregated. It is difficult for remote teams to connect or to collaborate. There's many remote collaborations going on. I myself am speaking to you today from Belgium. So if I had to gather all these, and in your case, the data, it becomes difficult. It's time consuming to analyze and to interpret, and it's almost impossible to see the full picture, hindering data-driven decisions as a result. Right? And as a quote from Doug Fisher says, data that sit unused are no different from data that were never collected in the first place. So I'm sure you can relate to that. What we offer is Prono. This joined the Electa family a couple of years ago. And what it does is to make this easy for you, make it easy for you to use this data. And our plans are, and I'll show you now, how you can use it for the planning process in general, but it's to bring it closer to the planner for everyday planning. The three main things that Prono offers is that all the data is available to you instantly. I'll give you some examples of why that is the case. It's a cloud-based system, so all the team is connected. Now, because of its ease of use, all the insights that you have, it's your own data, you get that effortlessly. Now, if you look at the first part, all the data, basically it has a DICOM RT backbone, like a DICOM RT PACS. It supports any planning system or treatment modality, right? So doesn't matter what you have in the department, whether it's LINAC-based treatments, brachy, protons, all of these are supported. It is cloud-based. And also for access point of view, it is web-based. So you don't need any specific dedicated software. So especially for things like mobile devices and so on, it's very easy. Unlimited archive and retrieve. Everything is encrypted and secure. I know there's a lot of concern. Is the data in the cloud safe? Completely secure on that side, but also compliant from a regulatory point of view. Because of its cloud nature, you can work from anywhere, 24/7 access. It is completely operating system and device independent. And so any laptop or a Surface device with a pointer, things like that can be used, giving you the flexibility. It is high performance software. It's designed for speed. So there are none of this refresh rate delays, things like that you see with image manipulation. Because of these two things, right, it allows you then to start manipulating or using the data. Things like all the dose-based scorecards, dose volume histograms, isodose lines, the things you would expect from DICOM data. You have image-based insights, volumes, the distances between structures, things like that. Also non-dose-based metrics. You can put on there. Anything that you're using to manage outcomes, for example. You can also measure correlations between treatments or between patients. So these are some of the things that I'll show you in in the following slides. The nice thing is the first two aspects allow you to do the things you've always done, but it's just faster and easier. It's not rocket science. The thing on the end, the insights, are things that you probably haven't done before. Just to kind of, before I go into, I've got two scenarios that I want to show you how it can be used in the planning space. But if I look at how the data is organized, if you look on the image, these are all the criteria, all the data for individual patients that you can just put there because it's a DICOM RT backbone, right? So DICOM and non-DICOM information can be uploaded and you can organize it per workspace. It could be a department, it could be a disease site team, whatever you want to, however you organize yourselves, right? It's at an individual or a patient level. You take that information and it's very easy to create what we call collections or cohorts. The same thing, but you can group it very easily. So you can then start doing some correlations between groups. Now, let me give you the first scenario, something very straightforward. Comparing and selecting the best option at an individual patient level. You can do it in your planning system, right? So let me just take a prostate case like this, where maybe you have decided to look at how best to treat the patient, and you're seeing one result, and you look at your planning system, or in this case, you will have sent it to Prono, and you look at the scorecard, and look at the number of acceptables or marginals. That's sort of if you were to try and plan this at a 6MV VMAT, and maybe you want to try a different option, you can. You're getting, and not only that, you also have something like a tomotherapy in your department, for example, right? Now, instead of having to go to a different planning system, multiple plannings to take a look, Prono can help you there. You are looking at the multiple options, a 6MV VMAT versus a 10MV VMAT versus a helical. You could also do protons. All of these are just nicely presented to you, so you can decide how you would pursue with the treatment, right? So, and you can also not only look at it at a scorecard level, but all the other usual ways, including dose volume histograms. You can look at the various structures, right? So all these are fairly straightforward, and this particular case on an individual patient level, you get the work done. Now let's take a slightly more complicated scenario where you're comparing against a cohort of patients, right? So here you go, you finished the plan, right? And you're pretty happy with it. Let's say this fictitious patient, Jace Dean, you've done the plan, and well, you're so happy, you think your work is going to be done. Friday, becoming afternoon, you send a text to your wife or something, and you say, "Hola, querida, I will be home early. Let's go to my parents tonight. We can have my mother's feijoada," right? So you're very confident. You're going to leave the apartment early, and of course, your wife is very happy too. She says, "Oh, really? Sounds great," right? It's obvious she's very happy to be going to your parents. Now you decide just one last check. Let's look at the DBH. Well, the plan looks good, right? Look at the DBH on the left. You look at the scorecard on the right. And most of the things at the top look good. Yes, there are certain things unacceptable, but they are less important to you, right? And you're getting even more confident. And you say, send a text to your wife again. And you say, "Listen, I called my mother. She is so excited." And you can see your wife's excited too. She says, "Yes. Yeah, me too. Can't wait." So it's very clear. Everyone's looking forward. Early evening, going to your parents. But then you think to yourself, well, let me just take a check. Let's see how my plan that I'm doing, the current patient, how it fares against the other patients' data that we have been working on. And you decide to look at the brainstem, the DBH of the brainstem. And you're not happy. If you look on the left-hand side, that's the population, right, in your department of the head and neck's been done recently, and you've put in your collection that you want to measure against. The black line is in that particular plan you've done. And you're thinking, that's a bit on the high side. And then you look at the histogram on the right, where all those lines, and again, you're just looking at the brainstem, all those lines represent where you are within the population. And look at the current patient on the right. It's sticking way outside, right? It's an outlier. It's the worst we have done today, you tell yourself. You were just looking forward to leaving and going to your parents' house, right? So, you're worried. So you say, "Well, hola, querida, I've been thinking, and I think your wife's sort of expecting something that's perhaps happened before." And she said, "Really? Well," then you decide, let me just check. Not only my department, let's look at my network. Perhaps you work as part of a big hospital chain, right? So you've taken this whole network and look at the patient there. This is the plan you thought, right? In the beginning, you thought everything's looking good. But if you look at the histogram of the dose of the brainstem, look at where your plan is versus the rest that has been there, right? Now, I'm just looking at one dose for the brainstem, but at least this tells you that if you had stopped without doing this check, you would not have known this, right? Because otherwise the scorecards were fine, DVHs were fine, right? So it's about time you found some excuses. You would be saying, you send a text, the traffic is looking bad. Can you call my mother, right? Last thing you want to do is to disappoint your mother. And your wife's very sympathetic, says, "Well, maybe it will improve. I don't want to call your mother just now." That's a bit more pressure on your side. But because you can see this, all you do is you select that histogram, that current patient, and with one click, it takes you exactly to that patient you've been working on, and it'll tell you exactly why the DVH that you saw, the brainstem dose on the brainstem, is not as good, right? Is higher than you would have thought in the beginning. And now you can see, you tell yourself, wow, I see the problem. I can fix it easily, right? So just a few texts ago, you were worried that you weren't going to go to see your parents for your mother's feijoada. And with a couple of clicks, you can see the problem, and there you fix it, right? So of course you're very happy. You say, Hola, querida, where are you? I'm at my parents' already because you've just rushed, right? The traffic wasn't so bad. And I think your wife, also very excited, says, oh, okay, I'll be there. It'll be fun, right? So you can see within just a few clicks, it doesn't take a huge amount of complexity on the part of the software. Prono makes it easy for you to use the things that are already there, but just accessible to help and to use the data to find and help solve the problem. Its ease of use and easy to access makes it a valuable tool. Sometimes it isn't about the whole range of capabilities, but when we design software, we tend to make it much more complicated than we would like ourselves, simply to give you all the capabilities. In this case, the way Prono represents the data, how easy it makes you to access it, is a real differentiator, I would say. So using everyday data effectively, it can make a big difference to the quality of the treatment, right? So in this particular story of ours, you're already at your mother's, you have solved the problem, you've identified the problem, you could solve it, and you thought for a while that perhaps you wouldn't get it done on time, but you did. And now you are at your parents' place, and you're just now waiting for your wife, and you're so fast, and she says, hola, querido, the traffic is looking bad. Can you let your mother know that I'll be there next time, right? So that's unfortunate. But at least Prono has saved your working day, and you can be at home with your parents enjoying the feijoada. Anyway, with that, thank you for your attention. I've tried to keep it brief and give you the highlights of Prono and how it helps you with your planning today. Thank you.
And to conclude, okay. Thank you, Abby, for the presentation. And we agree to be with us today. To conclude the classes section, I would like now to invite the physician Juliana Barbosa-Siqueira, who knows the position of marketing manager for planning system at Vivara Medical System in Las Vegas. She will present the lecture evaluating plan alone or collaborating with peers using marketing. Thank you, Juliana.
Good evening. I'm Juliana Simões, medical physicist and TPS Product Marketing Manager for the Americas with Variant. Eu vou pedir licença aos meus colegas para falar em inglês durante essa apresentação, mas se alguém tiver alguma dúvida que não ficou claro ou por alguma razão queria esclarecer algum ponto, fique à vontade para perguntar no Q&A ou para mandar um e-mail para mim. Meu contato está na tela, tá? Today I'll talk about how we can leverage AI for plan evaluation, especially when we're working alone. How can we leverage that to be confident on what treatment we're creating for the patient, but also how to collaborate with peers using Variant tools. I'll start with our current 510K pending Variant AI segmentation product. It's the new generation of automated contouring, right? And it's for Eclipse customers, a cloud-based solution that covers the key anatomical sites, head and neck, thorax, abdomen, and pelvis. We are aiming to save up to 80% of the time that it takes for this manual task. And that means efficiency and time back for you to dedicate on making clinical decisions as well as spending more time with the patients if needed. Although this is not really a plan evaluation tool, since our AI models were also created with hundreds and thousands CT datasets, it is a great tool for a training purpose, for example. And like my colleague said in the previous presentations, the use of data collection is extremely valuable, right? The data collection that you have in your clinic from other patients that you already dedicated your time to create this plan, to evaluate, to discuss with others, and now it's stored away in each specific patient. That's why Varian was the first in the industry to introduce AI and had the focus to have machine learning for planning back in 2014. And with the current scenario that we live in, the world is really asking for more efficiency, but not only that, but also high quality, keeping the quality of the plan, even though you're making it much faster, right? And how does RapidPlan really help us? So I just said that we have all the data that we dedicate the time for each patient. It's stored away in each patient database. When we use RapidPlan will really get the plans, the historical plan collections that is stored away with your best plan practice, so that you discuss with the physicians, that you made decisions, that you made adjustments, that you spent hours creating. And now RapidPlan will gather the dosimetric and geometric data per plan and patient and put it back to our machine learning algorithm that will create models. Those models will be used for a new patient, where we will create objectives that will make sure that this patient gets the best plan possible based on these other plans that we use to create the models. And that also will give you a DVH estimation band, which will tell you where this plan will go before you even start the optimization. So you can make decisions if this is where you wanted to go based on the best practice plan, or change, come back to external beam planning and change your field setup and move on, right? How does that really look like when you're using it? This is what you see when you're in the optimization screen. So as soon as you start the optimization, you don't select or put any optimization parameters. You already have your structures, your beam setup already set. You have your structure set also. When you come back to the optimization, that's what you see when you select a model. Before you even start optimizing, it's going to tell you this is where each structure will go, and this is the DVH estimation band that you see right here. And those DVH estimation band will tell you that in order for this plan to really fit the best practice plans that you have used for the models, in other words, to fit your clinical protocols, this DVH will have to follow these bands, or at least fall in between those bands, right? And to achieve that, the objectives that are generated automatically by RapidPlan can be used. Not necessarily you have to stick with those. You can make changes and improve those if needed. Okay, so this is really a great tool for you to achieve right away your best plan possible for that patient and know that you're going the right direction before you even start wasting time with optimization in those calculations, right? And why do I care about this? Yes, I understand this is good to create new plans, but how about a plan evaluation? The good thing is that RapidPlan estimation bands are also available not only during optimization, which you can evaluate before you even start, but also when you have your final dose calculation. So when you look at your DVH estimation in your final DVH, you can see that the DVHs from the other structures are or are not falling in between the DVH estimation band. In other words, like I said, following your clinical protocols, your high standards of quality in your clinic. It's very helpful for the planner. It's very helpful for the physician that is evaluating those plans. Quickly, they can see right away if this plan is passing or not, that is following what they want, and from there make decisions or make changes. Right? So this is how we can leverage all the data that you have in your clinic separately. Initially, that was separated in each patient, but now all gathered together and work through machine learning, through AI, and now you can use that to create plans and to evaluate plans. Another thing that's very helpful is to create plans using RapidPlan for different modalities. So we also have RapidPlan for protons. We're the first one in the industry also to have machine learning for protons. And that makes it even more efficient for us to decide what modalities do we want to use. Because RapidPlan not only creates high quality plans, but also creates it quickly, especially if you're leveraging GPU in your clinic, we can see that we can run rapid plan for photons and know that we're going to achieve the highest quality plan possible based on your best practice plans. And you can run rapid plan for protons, see both plans results, and compare and have a visual and accurate information on what would be the best for this patient. You can even decide if you really need to refer this patient to another institution that has protons, right? Instead, depending on the quality of the plan that you see, you could realize that the photon treatment really provides equivalent outcomes for this patient. So therefore, I don't really need to refer this patient to another clinic. Or me really decide, yeah, I really have to send this patient to another institution. Let's work on that. But you have the real thing, real data in front of you. Okay. Talking about decision support and more tools for evaluation, what else do we have? So the version 16 also comes with clinical goals, and the clinical goals is the old plan objectives that we have it for a while, right? It's used to be inside clinical protocols for those who are used to it. Now it is separately. You can add on the fly to any patients, to any plans. You can use templates or not. And this really helps you to input the real clinical goals, what do you want to achieve for this patient when you are creating the plan. Now, when you do that, when you go to optimization, you can track those clinical goals, right? So you can track clinical goals through optimization, final plan evaluation, or multiple plan comparisons. So during the optimization, you can decide right away if you are going in the right path, if you really are achieving what you need, and make changes right away. So you're doing your plan evaluation, you're making decisions right there. Now, when you move to a plan comparison, for example, you can compare protons and photons, and now you can see side by side what is passing, what's not passing. And as soon as you finish your optimization, when you're using a final plan evaluation with clinical goals, you don't have to go look at the DVH, everything, and then track with the dose distribution what's not good and what can you do. And this really helps you to focus on what's not passing. And maybe you really did look at the dose distribution in the DVH, but you didn't notice a specific spot or some areas that were not good. And the visual clinical goals that looks like a scorecard really helps you identify that very quickly in a more logical way. It also comes with the clinical goals template, and in this template you can, not only on the templates, but when you're creating the clinical goals, you can add priorities to them, so you can prioritize your clinical goals, and that will be used really on the auto MCO. Before I talk about auto MCO, let me talk about what is MCO for those who are not aware. Right? So MCO, multi-criteria optimization, is our trade-off exploration tool that we have. So we provide to MCO our initial optimized plan, and from there it will use the Pareto surface to generate balanced plans, optional plans, let's put it this way. And from there, what you see is what you see on the screen. You can move the bars, and you can see if I increase the dose on the PTV, the coverage on the PTV, what's going to happen to the rest of the DVH for the other structures. So it turns green when it's improving the structure, it turns red when it's not really helpful for that specific structure, and is a really helpful tool for you to visualize and make decisions. Okay. And aside to that, you can see that your clinical goals are showing here, with the green circle saying that it's passed and the red one saying that it's not passed. So as you move the bars, this will change and the numbers will change as well. But what the auto MCO does is really leverage the prioritization that we used in the clinical goals when we first created the plan and added the clinical goals. So that patient, when you jump into the multi-criteria optimization, auto MCO will already move the bars for you. It's like somebody already had selected what's the best balance plan for you to be used for this patient to fulfill the most number of clinical goals. And you can see here that everything gets green, green, green until it gets red. So based on prioritization. Okay. And of course, you can still change it if needed. This is a great tool for those who are trying to make decisions, and how many times the physicians will come back to us and say, oh, you know what if we increase a little bit the coverage of this PTV, or if we decrease a little bit the dose on the cord, And now you're going to have to come back and re-optimize everything. This is great for them to do by themselves, or for you to use as a tool to make it more efficient, do plan evaluation and plan discussion with the physicians when you are sitting together. Talking about sitting together, how can we then collaborate with others? Now you discuss with the physicians, you can decide what you want to do for this patient, but it could be that the physician still wants to discuss this particular patient case with the other physicians in the clinic. So what can they do to do that? What usually you do? We would do a chart round, right? Or a peer review session. Peer review sessions will take a valuable time on preparation. You would gather all the data that you can, put together images, contours, appointments data, other images from radiology, or any chart that you have for this patient somewhere else. So it could be multiple people coordinating it. It could be a very stressful task, right? And a lot of times to find time with the physicians for them to gather together, to sit with you, or to really sit together with the other physicians is challenging. And what happens a lot of times is that the physicians will accumulate the most number of patients at the same time and end up rushing through those patients, right? I mean, doing the best that they can, but with the limited time per plan to be evaluated. But the American College of Radiology and the Canadian Partnership for Quality in Radiotherapy, they have affirmed that peer review chart rounds or peer review period are vital component for a high quality radiation therapy, right? Not only that, but also said that all cases should be reviewed before to start the treatment, and if not before start, at least before it completes 25% of the total dose prescribed for their patient. That is not, they are not alone. AAPM and ASTRO also recommend that. Okay. And aside to that, the Royal College of Radiologists, they've said that 11% of the treatment plans are really changed after they go through a peer review session, which means that they could really impact directly the actual outcome of the patient. Some of the challenge that they also say is that when a site has different treatment planning system, this could be a problem as a barrier of execution for a peer review or chart round, right? And like I mentioned before, there is the fact that sometimes when it's a lot of physicians, a lot of patients, or there's not really much time for you to spend on review patients every time or at any time, they will accumulate a big number of patients at the same time. And this could result on missing some errors that could be corrected in a chart round, right? So there was a study done on this article that you can see on the screen that they said that the average period that they took for a chart round would be 60 minutes, and with about 45 cases or more to be reviewed at the same time, which means that they didn't really have much time per patient, and they evaluated how much did they miss by going through this chart round, and they actually introduced some errors on the plans and the patients to see how this would reflect in the end for the patient or for the review, right? So why do I say all this? Knowing about this, Varian introduced two different tools for us to facilitate peer reviews. One is RT peer review, that is part of version 16 and above. It leverages the unified database with ARIA database and utilizes bookmarks. So when you're planning, you select the bookmark exactly where you want the physician to see. They will see a specific tab showing you what exactly slice of the CT do you want to evaluate, but also send this to a different workspace within Eclipse, right? So it leverages the Varian database, the unified database that we have with ARIA. So for customers that have unified database and only have ARIA in Eclipse, that could be a good option. And then we have our cloud-based solution that's called ePeer Review. And ePeer Review is not only used for meetings, but also for distributed peer review, what does that even mean? It means that I can review not only in a meeting, but also when I have time. I could use that to review with a physician, or I could use to review with another physicist or with a dosimetrist, and I just can send this to them and they can review that when they have time. So let's take a closer look to ePeer review. I can send plans to ePeer review to the cloud and review contours, plan reviews, do some kind of a plan QA, so evaluate these plans, and go to the analytics. Right? I can send it from Eclipse 13 and above, 13.5 and above, other treatment planning systems, or a collaborator. Even if they're not part of my clinic, I can use somebody that could be an expert on head and neck, for example, or SRS, and ask them to review this particular case. And they can just launch the ePeer review that is a web-based product and review this case based on what you've requested to be reviewed, right? And aside to that, like I said, we can do it in a centralized review meeting. There are tools for you to review using ePeer review to review it, as well as do it separately when you have time. So that problem that we have when the physicians are gathering together but accumulate a big number of patients at the same time, the patients that don't really need to go to a chart round, they don't need a discussion but still need to be reviewed, could be reviewed in the distributed fashion. When each individual that should be reviewing this patient is available, they will review this patient. So ePeer review is a cloud-based solution that is designed for efficient distributed peer review for any planning system. Like I said, you can still do that with meeting as well. And how does it look like? Like ePeer review, you can submit plans to review manually or straight from your treatment planning systems. If you have Eclipse, you already have tools to automatically use and send important data, the data that you need for review, and it's sent it to the cloud. As soon as you send it, a notification is sent to the reviewer's email, and once they launch the ePeer review, they will see this screen with the list of all patients that they have to review, what they have to review, if it is volume, if it is plan, and also if it is urgent and if not urgent. You can set up all these options on the admin workspace. Okay. Reviewers can review that in or out of a meeting, like I mentioned before, and as soon as they're done, this is going to be sent back to the submitter. So it's a very nice and quick way for you to evaluate when you're not on site, when you're remotely, and to really get the tools that you need and the data that you need to evaluate this patient. So you can see here that we have this patient. You can evaluate the images and look at all the structures and decide, have check marks on what has to be reviewed or not as well. It's available. Okay. And all this data can be combined and reviewed further and evaluated further through the analytics that we have available, right? So you could see how many reviews were done a certain period of time, how many volumes and plans were really reviewed per time, if there was an increase or decrease, and you can see all the charts here as well. And like I said, ePeer review can be utilized for you to collaborate with another dosimeter if you want a quick check. Hey, can you review my plan? I'm not sure. I can't really lower the dose on the product or on the cord. Can you help me? Or dosimetrist to a physician or a physicist when you're doing the secondary check. Right? And when the physician wants to collaborate with the group in the same hospital, or if they want to really send this to another collaborator that could help them make decisions. So in ePeer review, because of all the tools that we have, specifically talking about scorecards and analytics, it is a tool that can be used for more than just peer review, right? It helps facilitate training because of the scorecards and the analytics, as well as clinical trials and research. Right, I'm running out of time. So to summarize, our plan evaluation can be used, can leverage machine learning. Like I mentioned before, you can use the historical data to make decisions in this patient and evaluate your plans quickly and with confidence that you're giving the best for this patient and you're doing the right thing. You can use clinical goals to see visually and logically evaluate the plans with the pass rates, as well as MCO to make decisions if needed by moving the bars and using the trade-off exploration tool that we have. And when needed to collaborate with peers, we can use either RT-peer review if you have a version 16 and above in unified database with ARIA, or you can use ePeer review that will be helpful for distributed reviews, and it's our cloud-based solution. Okay, thank you.
You can go, Milena. Yeah. Milena, you can make the first question.
Okay. The first question is from Flávio Teixeira for Seifo. Seifo, which advice would you give to radiotherapy hospitals in Brazil where the reality is to reach at least 7 patients per day?
Let me see whether I understood the question correctly. What advice will I give to a radiotherapy center where they're treating more than 70 patients per day?
Yes, about the COVID.
Oh, okay. An important question. Thanks to the person who asked the question. It just so happened I looked up the number of COVID cases that happened in Brazil. There were a total of over 14 million total cases and 386,000 deaths. There are about 3,000 deaths daily and 66,000 new cases. So this is an enormous number. So I do not know what the current vaccination situation is in the country. The first thing I would advise is, with all the vaccinations that are available, I would like to see that as many of the staff there as possible, everybody preferably get vaccinated. That is the first level of protection that we can create for all the staff members in the. So this is, this question is relating to radiation oncology, because she is asking the question about linear accelerator. So vaccinate, that's important. Next, I would think that the equivalent of the organization that we have, the United States CDC. So the equivalent organization, I do not know what the name of that organization is in Brazil. I'll take their unbiased, non-political, scientific advice that is given to the country, and I'm sure they will give similar advice to the hospital. And the hospital administration, I would think, will have an appropriate committee with the medical professionals to give advice to every department and the recommendations as to how to handle patients will be different for different departments. Surgery will be different from, say, radiation oncology. Coming back to radiation oncology, I think that it will be important, to have a group put together with the physicians and the all the stakeholders around the table to decide which patients do we really want to treat. Which patients can wait, say, for example. We know that some prostate cancer patients, they can wait for some time. The patients that are absolutely needed to be treated, we need to treat. We need to have figure out a way so that when the patients come, put an appropriate system in place so that you determine whether the patients are exposed to any COVID-19 folks. So if they're exposed, then there has to be special measure that need to be taken. The professionals who come in close contact with the patients, say, with the technologists or the therapists, there need to be appropriate PPEs for all those the professionals. Simple rules: masking, social distancing, hand washing. These are the simple things that we can do. And there are many procedures that really, from a physics perspective, this is a physics meeting, that we put in place that can actually, depending on the quality management system is in place, we may not necessarily should be doing everything. For example, we used to do diode measurements on every 3D patient before the first treatment. And that meant a contact between the therapist and the patient. So we should stop doing that because that minimized the contact with the patient. So there are many things that you can do. And we also had systems in place when the patient first come in. You get a history of the patient. You take their temperature. You have some questionnaire to see where they were exposed. So, and in the waiting area, if there are 70 patients, there are a lot of patients there. So I'll make sure that they're appropriately separated, the social distancing, scheduling them so that there is not a major overlap of patients. And we need to bring with the patient their relatives, that come with us, minimize the presence of. So there are many things actually we can do to minimize the exposure to COVID-19. Just a few comments. But thanks, it's a very good question.
Thank you. Angel, próxima.
Second question, just a moment, is to Rodrigo. Rodrigo, about the recently public that considers TCP beyond NTCP, do you think this could change our routing planning?
I just read the message. If I heard, it is considering the high tech for new guidelines or new constraints. Is it true?
Yes.
Okay. The high tech is a step forward from the classic Quantec or the older EMAMI's constraints. And we need to we need to improve our constraints for SBRT. This is the whole set for the high tech. But I'm more comfortable with a new concept called GARD, Genomic Adjusted Radiation Dose. It seems more advanced and more reasonable from on the old TCP. This new high tech includes the TCP for the classic NTCP, but TCP is a pretty old concept, and I'm really excited with this new one, GARD. So in the meantime, we should use the high tech, but considering to move in a close future to the GARD.
I will present next. Just a minute. Next question. The next question is from Marcelo for Ade. Yeah. Is it possible to import all my data inside Pronoun? You can list.
I don't.
O meu som. Eu não escuto ninguém. Tá travando, Thomas. Isso. Vamos fazer uma pausa.
Hello. So the next question is for Abby. Is it possible to import all my Eclipse data inside Pronoun?
Yes, no problem. It is vendor agnostic. You can do it from any treatment planning system.
Thank you.
Next question is for Nicholas. It's about, do you use in our planning routine some modulation degree threshold to see if planning is good or not good or acceptable?
Excuse me, I lost the first part.
If you use in your planning routine modulation degree threshold to see if a plan is good enough for approving.
We have a 13.6 version of Eclipse, and I think this is not available in this version. Maybe Juliana can ask that question.
I didn't really understand the question.
The question, because when we have high modulation degree of your planning, could be unfeasible to deliver to the patient. So if in the routine clinic, if you have some threshold of modulation degree.
Yeah, I can answer for Eclipse. We usually have MLC leaf speed and MLC positions is always verified, and you can always also, if you're not confident that this plan will be able to be delivered, you can verify the leaf positions as well. So that's why we have all the configuration before to make sure that you put the right parameters there. And when you have something that is exceeding, then Eclipse should give you some warning on that as well. But of course, when you do the QA, there are other parameters that you're checking, so that could contribute to that.
Okay, thank you. Milena?
Next question is for Juliana. And let me see. Juliana, how to manage the difference in needs regarding coverage? Example, people who send the question say many models cover 95% of the dose in volume, while our plans better cover the volume to be treated. And it's the standard that our doctors are it's possible to manage the coverage to obtain more than 95%.
I think I understood the question is regarding Rapid Plan and is asking if you have
Yes.
models and some of the models, the coverage is about 95%. It's not what the doctor is usually requesting. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. It was a little bit of disconnection issues there, but I think I got it. So first, to start, the rapid plan models are created based on your reality, in your clinic reality. So if you're using models from some other clinics, they're actually using the 95% as a threshold. That's what you would see as a reproducing in your plan. Now, if you want to change that and you're leveraging a shared model because everything else works well, you can always edit the objectives in the model to reflect your reality, right? And that's why we also encourage you to create models that are representing the reality. As a matter of fact, we have our Brazilian rapid plan working group where we are trying to generate models for the reality, local reality as well. There you go.
Thank you.
Next question is to Ahmed and Saifu. When in the beginning of the Congress organization, we contact Ahmed and Saifu Hadesha Knowledge platform to see the possibility of make treatment planning competition. We don't have enough time and resource to do it at our Congress. Do you think it'll be able to make in the next months or in this year a plan competition in Brazil?
Ahmed, do you want to respond or do you want me to respond?
I didn't hear the question.
The question was, at the beginning, Angel reached out to both of us to hold a planning competition in Brazil. We had that discussion with them.
Yeah.
So he's asking whether we could hold a competition this year in Brazil. So I will answer, but go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Like, they just need to decide what kind of cases that they would like to focus on, and like in case many planners are facing specific difficulties in certain cases, so that they can focus and there can be a value that they can get out of it, not only just for a matter of competition. So they can see what difficulties planners are facing, so that they can make a competition and lessons can be learned from that, and then knowledge can be shared with the best performance, and this can be even made to the whole Latin America and even global if they're interested too. So the short answer is yes, of course.
So if I may add to that, we are actually doing another competition in June, July, and that will take a lot of our bandwidth away. And this is working with a colleague in Harvard. They have an institution, the Global Health Connect is a major initiative by a physicist from Harvard. So we want to do it and probably focus more in the African countries. And then that will also be doing it globally. And you just heard Ahmed when he gave his presentation, we'll finish the South SAARC countries, Southeast Asian countries. We'll finish tomorrow. So we're trying to do it globally. So we'll be pretty busy with this next competition until about September. So if you think that doing something around October timeframe is a possibility, we'd love to do it. I mean, this is a wonderful opportunity to really, not only the planning competition, but it's also an opportunity to pull together the radiation oncologists, medical physicists, and the therapists or the technologists, I don't know what you call in Brazil, to pull them all together. And the SAARC competition that we did, we pulled in the appropriate professionals from the respective disciplines to give the presentation. The clinician gave a talk on clinical aspect. The physicist gave a talk on the physics aspect of the same disease, I'd say, for example. And the therapist came and talked about what the challenges they face in the clinic when they set up a patient or imaging, their day-to-day lives. So it's the entire package, that we are talking about. The contouring also, we're trying to, pull the contouring session also together. So it takes a little time, but there will have to be very active participation from your end. Otherwise, there are three of us in radiation knowledge. We cannot do it ourselves. And so it can be made to be a very successful program indeed. And we'll be very happy to do it.
Oh, fantastic. I already talked to Milena. She's responsible for radiotherapy in our association, and we'll do it together.
I don't know. I can't hear. Angel, he's talking now.
For me, but you cannot hear. I'll translate to you. Okay, go ahead.
This is Friday night internet issues. Okay. No. I would like to thank you. Okay, I would like to thank you, all of you that are watching us until now. This Friday night, sorry for the issues regarding internet, and I would like to thank you again, the 6 speakers and Milena. Thank you guys very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting us. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
Thank you.
Boa noite.
Obrigado.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.